Welcome back to another episode of the Sheep in the Meadow podcast. Today we have here Mr. Demartinis, our principal here at Mepham High School. Mr. Demartinis, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Luke. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm very glad to have you onto the show. I mean, very anticipated guest. Honestly, was waiting for this to happen, and I thought now would be a perfect time. So how was your day today? I know you were telling me before that Fridays are a little bit busy, and the days before breaks are a little bit busy. So just run me through your day, like how it went from start to finish, honestly.
Yeah, the day was great. I like to start out by the circle where a lot of the buses and a lot of the students get dropped off. It's just something I started doing my first year here. And you get to know a lot of students that way. You get to see a lot of parents that way. And that's a highlight of the day for me, always. A little fresh air. I usually stand outside with Mr. Naw. He's one of our security guards. And we talk a little bit and say hello to the students. And then when I came in, I had some good meetings. We're already thinking about next year. So we're talking about classes for next year. I met with Dr. Giraffa. He's our math chairperson. I met with Ms. Einbinder today, just before I walked in. So we're starting to have some conversations, along those lines, thinking about next year. And other than that, I try to get out of the office. I try to get up to the second, third floor as much as I can. Mm-hmm. I try to see people in the hallways. I try to be around. I was actually able to have lunch with Mrs. DeLolio, Mr. Del Rosario, and the custodial crew today, which was a lot of fun.
Nice.
They did a great job with the snow and the ice earlier this week, so we wanted to have lunch with them. We appreciate their team. They do such a great job here. So
it's supposed to be snowing again this weekend, next week, throughout the week too. So that's going to be a.
Well, I'm going by the weekly announcements. Weekly announcements said meteorology report said no snow. So I'm not preparing for snow.
Honestly, I don't even know at this point because it's been a lot of, as it is always every year, it's always like, we're going to get snow this day, then there's no snow. It's always a whole thing, to be honest with you. But I wanted to talk about, we just had our celebration this past Tuesday about Mrs. Safina going back to Central. And we've had a lot, throughout these past 4 years that I've been in the school, we've had a lot of staff changes. So I just want to hear how you got to the position you're in today of being the principal of Mepham High School.
Thanks, Luke. So I started my career as a counselor at Kennedy High School.
How old were you?
I was right out of grad school, so I was probably 24, 25 years old.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to undergraduate at SUNY Albany. Okay. Then I went to grad school at LIU, post. Nice. And I interned at Kennedy, and one of the counselors there was transferring, and one of the counselors was moving right when I finished my internship. So I interviewed, and the counselors, I got to know them pretty well during my internship. So they took a chance on me, and it was great. I coached soccer there for a number of years with Mr. Elias. I was the student government co-advisor with Mr. Seidman for a couple of years. You probably have met Mr. Seidman once or twice. If not, you'll run into him soon. He's
oh no, I know him. Say it again because I always forget his name.
Mr. Seidman.
Seidman.
Yeah.
I know him. I know the face. He's always at the ambassador meetings. Yes. I always see him there. And I had to go to, I was once at one of the coalition meetings. He met us there, and he brought us into that. So I know who he was, but I never knew his name. Mm-hmm. And I always felt so bad, but now I do know who he is. Yeah.
He runs student government there. He actually does the Cougar TV.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so incredible teacher. So I worked with some great professionals like that, and I love being a counselor. I love working with students through, the college process and everything that goes along with high school. And I met with our former superintendent, let him know that I was thinking about going into building leadership. He said he thought that it was a great idea, and I interviewed for a job at Grand Avenue, didn't get it. Got rejected in the nicest way possible.
Do you know who got that job?
That was Mr. Riccardi, who's still at Grand.
Okay.
You know Mr. Riccardi.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Riccardi, yeah.
That's interesting.
Listen, he's a great professional, I'm okay losing out, to Mr. Riccardi. And then the next year, another position opened up over at Calhoun, an assistant principal position that I went for, and I did get that position. So I was a 3-year assistant principal at Calhoun. That was during COVID, the years after COVID. And when the position at Mepham posted, I knew that I was going to have the least amount of leadership experience out of any of the candidates. but I had always universally heard amazing things about Mepham, about this community, about the kids. The teachers that I met from here always seemed to be so happy. So I knew it was something that I wanted to pursue because I felt like I would be kicking myself forever if I didn't, at least find out about it, go for it. And then throughout the interview process, I met people like your sister and some other students. And, every time I left a room, I left feeling like I like those people. And I feel like they like me too. I feel like this is a good fit until eventually, it worked out where I got the position. Now I couldn't be happier. Every day is amazing here for me, truly.
It's actually funny you bring up, you meeting my sister, because she was like her and one of her other friends too were put onto like the board to like vote for the new principal once Gomez was leaving. And I remember her telling me that she voted for you. And then you got the job, and then now we're here. So it's just, big coincidence. It's funny to
cool.
talk about. I'm glad to have you here on the podcast. A lot has been happening. So honestly, I told you that we were going to talk ball today. This is going to be a big sports podcast, and we were already talking a little bit before we put on the cameras. But, I mean, I don't know how big of an NBA fan you are. How big of an NBA fan are you?
So I started my love with the NBA in the 90s.
Okay.
Jordan, 90s Knicks, Patrick Ewing, Oakley, all those Knicks teams, Larry Johnson. And then I left the NBA for a number of years. And I don't exactly know why, because when I know you're an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
When I played soccer, I played basketball, I played rugby in college. When I have dreams and I'm playing a sport, it's always basketball. But objectively, basketball was a sport I was the worst at. I played my junior and senior year. I got some minutes, but I probably should have been sixth man. But the guy who was better than me was going to play lacrosse at UNC. So his parents, so he didn't play basketball. So I got his spot, which was great for me, not so great for the team. We made the playoffs, but
that's good.
But still, I had so much fun playing basketball. I love the game. I coach my boys and my daughter now, their teams. So I love the game. But for some reason, after high school, I didn't follow the NBA for a long, long time. Just recently now, I don't know if it was the Villanova connection. I don't know if it's Brunson. We got Cat this year. I don't know why, but something about this combination of Knicks players' heart, something about this combination of Knicks players has got me back in. So I've been watching more this season. And I love that I'm also paying attention to other games. The Luka trade I'm sure we'll hit on.
Definitely.
So I'm fallen back in love with the NBA, and the timing just feels right. And my sons are into it. We watch games together, so it's pretty good. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I mean, as most viewers may know, I've mentioned it a bunch of times, but I'm like diehard Miami Heat fan. So the Heat and the Knicks have a huge rivalry. Honestly, I think that started from the moment when Alonzo Mourning got into a fight with Steve Van Gundy, and there's that picture of Steve Van Gundy holding onto his leg. That's definitely where it started. And my dad was a huge Dwayne Wade fan when he was coming out of Marquette. And when he got drafted to the Heat, I have like a good amount of family down in Miami too. So it just kind of started from there. But I really wanted to touch upon the trade deadline because I was reading stats recently and how this was the most active trade deadline in NBA history with 65 players being moved.
Wow.
So obviously, like you were saying before, the Luka Doncic trade, we got to talk about it because people are saying that this is the biggest trade in NBA history. So I know like you were saying, you were a Knicks fan. Most people from New York are, but you got to tell me, what are your thoughts on, Nico Harrison, the GM of the Mavs, and Rob Pelinka, the whole thing. I got to hear it.
Look, it's hard for me to even compare it to anything, right? Like it's hard to compare this trade to something else in our sphere of consciousness because I think that's how outside the pale it is. That's how ridiculous this trade is. That it's hard to create an analogy, even in another sport, of a trade that's happened.
Yeah.
Now, there are going to be the counter, points that say, well, Anthony Davis is this, Anthony Davis is that. Please. Luka is a generational talent at 26 years old. Stop. So my initial impression when I heard about the trade, or when I saw about it, I think it was 10:30 at night, it came through, it started hitting all the text threads, was it has to be personal, right? Luka had to curse somebody out. He had to do something incredibly unprofessional. It has to be personal because you don't cut ties with a player of that talent unless it's personal. And then I slept on it. I thought about it a little more, and I realized that nothing in the NBA or big sports, for that matter, is personal at this point. It's all business. It's all about money. And there are layers of checks and balances to prevent personal vendettas or feelings from affecting the bottom line. So when I started thinking about it as a business decision, well, why would they make this business decision? And the only reason I can think of aligns with some theories that I saw online, that maybe the owners aren't happy in the Dallas market, and maybe ultimately the idea is to move out of the Dallas market.
Right. Now, I mean, obviously there's a lot of theories going around. I think the Mavericks definitely improved their defense with Luka being gone. But like you said, a generational, the dude was averaging this season 28, 8 and 8. The season before that, he was averaging 39 and 9. That is absolutely insane. And he was, I think, third for MVP. That's absolutely insane. What I've been seeing a lot of is Nico Harrison's not a good GM. He was part of the reason why Steph Curry signed with Nike. I don't know if you ever saw that, but
as I was reading, I realized that he was attached to that.
Yeah, so that's one thing. And then I saw another thing when you were talking about the personal thing, that his wife was a big fan of Luka, like Luka Doncic, and it almost seemed like she liked him more than him.
No.
Which, exactly.
No,
the media is so crazy. But
Come on.
I was like, there's no way that's true. But it's just like they could have gotten so much more because it's Luka Doncic, and they didn't. And I just don't understand how he's not fired. And I saw another thing where he was on the phone with the Mavs' new owner, and he mentioned, like, over the summer, over the offseason, thoughts on trading Luka Doncic, and the owner laughed at him over the phone. Like, that's obviously not going to happen. So I don't know if he's going to – there's no way this guy keeps his job. And I just think it was really just such a terrible decision. But like you're saying, from a business standpoint, he was going to get the biggest contract in NBA history. $325 million? Dude.
If you don't want to pay him, you don't want to pay him.
That's the thing. Like, how do you pay that? That's insane. That's way too big. So
for a guy who, listen, he's in shape, right? You don't score that many points unless you're in shape.
He's injured. Like, that's another thing. He probably put on weight because he can't play.
Right. So you want to say he's injury prone. You want to say he's not in great shape. You could say a lot of things to try and soften the blow, but the Mavericks fans were totally taken by surprise. There was nothing said to mitigate that surprise in the days after. There's been no damage control done that I've seen on the part of ownership. It was really a pretty blatant you-know-what to the fan base. And I don't know, as a Mavericks fan, you buying season tickets next year? You going to the game and you're buying a $12 soda and an $8 hot dog?
Well, now they're refunding all the home games. You saw that?
I did not see that.
The Mavs fans are so upset that the owner is refunding like up to $2,000 of only home games for season tickets.
That's crazy. I think that's unprecedented. I've never heard of an owner doing that.
Exactly.
So
how do you not fire this guy? Like, seriously.
What is going on? Their organization's in shambles.
Right. But I think the Lakers, honestly, they have hope, because before this, I always saw the Lakers as like the spot where you dump off like washed players. The Lakers, they just haven't had that like star talent, but now
Since
they're making. 8. Yeah, exactly. And even when he was there, right, they didn't build around him well enough. The only person they got him was Pau Gasol as his like other all-star, and he had some other help.
But are you sure that wasn't a Kobe thing?
You're right. That's the thing. Like, it could be that could have been like a business decision. Like, he has to be the one who has the ball in his hands at all times.
That could have been a Kobe thing.
Which definitely makes sense. But at the same time, you can't do it alone. You need that he needed that center. So that was a huge thing.
And going back, the whole defense, wins championships. Defense is important. Teams are putting up 140 points a game. Like, there's no defense.
There isn't.
Listen, the Knicks play pretty good defense, and they're still giving up 115, 120 points a game. So it's an offensive league. It's the way the NFL went, with those pass interference calls, protecting wide receivers, protecting quarterbacks. They want touchdowns. They want three-pointers, right? Like, I was just looking at They're even thinking about changing the point
Line,
structure
yeah.
and the line, and adding more or a higher point potential.
It's
which is
hard to
crazy.
watch. It really, like, I think the NBA really has, regressed from that whole, like, fundamental basketball thing. My dad was whenever we watched the games, it's always like, we should put the college coaches in the NBA and, do that whole cycle. And then the fundamentals of the game would come back, right? Because you'd have more of that, like, college.
So I used to feel this way, but let me ask you:
Okay.
if the Knicks win 60 to 58, is that going to be as exciting for you?
Definitely not. That's the problem.
From a purist standpoint, you're going to appreciate screens being set and good defense, turn the body, playing defense. But from a fan's perspective,
Yeah.
less dunking, less transition baskets, less 3-pointers. Those are the things that we can't do,
Mhm.
right? Like 60 to 58, we could probably play a game to that score, but we can't put up 130. We can't hang, 40 points. So I understand why they're going the way they are, why the game has evolved the way it has. I also think athletes now are in incredible shape.
Right.
What they can do, athletically, the athletes in the 90s just weren't doing. They're different now. They're jumping higher. They're running faster. So,
Yeah.
And the court has stayed the same size. So,
Yeah, exactly.
it's a lot of fun to watch NBA games. I love going to the Garden.
The Mecca.
I don't know how the game's going to evolve from here, though, but it's pretty cool to watch. But trades like this, I hate Luka to LA. I hate anything that makes LA better. It's tough to watch. It's tough to see.
Definitely. But you were mentioning football before too. With the Super Bowl being this weekend, who do we want to win? Because it's the Super Bowl that America did not want.
No,
Everybody
right?
wanted to see the Commanders. Or I mean, not even the Commanders. They wanted to see
Lions.
the Bills, either the Bills or the Lions in it. That was like the big one that everybody wanted to see.
Yep.
But I mean, what are your thoughts? Who do you want to win?
So, Luke, I'm a Jets fan. Yeah, I know.
Shout out to Kyle in the control room. He's also a Jets fan, suffering.
Yeah. So for us, we're not really invested in the emotion. I mean, Kansas City, to me, it's hard to cheer for them right now.
No.
It's hard to root for Kansas City. I was really hoping Buffalo would get there.
Yeah.
I don't have the same animosity towards Philly that Giants fans do. I think Saquon has had an incredible year. He probably could have, got the rushing title if they really pushed for it, if he really pushed for it.
100%.
Seems like a class act of a guy. So, I'll probably be going for Philly just because
Just because of
a
Saquon.
number of reasons I don't want to go for KC.
Now, I don't know if you watched Sheep on the Loose, but Mr. Moody, I asked him the same question, like, what are your thoughts on the Super Bowl? And he had a response. He was like, don't ask me this question. He's like, I wish the Super Bowl would get hit by an asteroid and the game wouldn't happen. And he said he wants Saquon to win, but he doesn't want the Eagles to win, which is probably like a lot of Giants fans feel the same way. But, I mean, you being a Jets fan, the Super Bowl, obviously, like you said, you'd rather have the Bills in the championship rather than the Chiefs. I think now it's more looking forward to the draft for Jets fans. A lot of having that high pick, and the whole Aaron Rodgers situation. Like, who do you guys think you should pick? Because I personally think it's time to get a quarterback.
You're probably right, Luke. I think if Rodgers had the talent left and the passion left, we would have seen it at some point this season. I think he started going off and exploring himself, and he made a documentary about it.
Yep.
But that seemed to change a lot of his approach and a lot of who he was professionally. And I think the Jets, unfortunately, were the team that inherited that. So I do agree. I think the change in quarterback. I also think that the Patriots had it figured out for many, many years. The Patriots, once they got that franchise quarterback, they built offensive, defensive lines around that quarterback. And then they filled with skills players that they would find. They drafted really well. They would sign skills players as they needed them. I think I'm actually surprised that the Jets and other teams haven't taken that organizational approach. Start with your line. Try to find a quarterback, but build the offensive, defensive line and go from there.
Yeah, which obviously I think that's definitely one of the most important things because I mean, if you look at the Eagles, they have an insane line, and then they worked their way. They got that quarterback, they got that running back, and they have their offense really is just really good. But I think, like you were saying, Aaron Rodgers just didn't have that like excitement to him watching him, but he had one of the best seasons by a Jets quarterback like ever, which says something. But I think it also is just if you're not seeing like
there's not nearly enough sadness behind your voice to say that. Like, that's sad.
Yeah, exactly. It says something because, like you said, it wasn't exciting to watch. It really wasn't. I have a friend who thinks if the Jets are going to take anybody, it should be Milroe, because his draft stock is kind of not as high as others, and a lot of people don't see him as like a really good throwing quarterback. So if you're going to get a quarterback, it would be him. I don't know personally. But going back to that offensive-defensive line thing, I think if the Chargers, they made a big move getting Harbaugh head coach. That's huge after him coming off of a natty. Then they picked Joe Alt, the best offensive lineman in the draft, and he has been the best offensive lineman like in the league. And they have Herbert.
Yep.
The only thing they're
Herbert's
lacking
solid
right now is the other skill positions, but I feel like that's going to come along.
Agreed.
So I think that's a good point to bring up is just working on the lines. And the Chargers weren't, they're not like, they're a very mid team. They're not like great, but they're not like terrible.
Right. But that's kind of where you want to be heading into the offseason, right? Because then if you draft well, you pick up a couple guys in free agency or trades, you can make the playoffs the next year.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. So, Eagles to win the Super Bowl, that's what we're hoping for.
I have a really good friend. He says you can't bet against the Chiefs.
You can't.
This is the year you can't bet against the Chiefs.
Especially, I was watching videos too of this one reporter who was at the Super Bowl like press conferences, and he asked Mahomes, he's like, what did he say? He said, Mahomes, is there, you guys have had a lot of success these past couple years winning all these Super Bowls. Is there a certain ref you'd like to thank? And it's actually crazy. Mahomes took it very professionally. He was like, all the refs are great. They all do their job very well. And then the guy follows up. He's like, yeah, are you sure you don't send one of them a Christmas card every year?
See, that's like, that's over the line, man. That's like, come on.
But it's so funny because a lot of people feel the same way.
All right, so Luke, everybody saw that overhead shot when Allen carried the ball on 4th down, right? They rushed after third. They didn't give him the first down. 4th and 1, right? And everybody saw the overhead camera shot of the ball clearly passing the line to gain.
Right.
So why wasn't it a first down? Do we have a camera that the referees don't have access to? If that's the case, why? And if that's not the case, then why weren't they granted the first down? These are things that are hard to explain, right? So on the the next day, the front page of the paper, you see that shot looking down, the ball over the line to gain. How does that not affect the game when it's happening? How is that not a first down?
It should have been, but that's the thing. The refs it's a lot of questionable calls, and especially when it comes with the Chiefs, and that's why everybody has that same feeling towards the whole Mahomes and Chiefs dynasty. But I think the thing about what's the difference between Tom Brady's Patriots, that legacy, and then the Chiefs, is that it's so blatantly obvious that there's something going on between the refs and the Chiefs.
Ooh.
And then with Brady, it was more of like he's really good, but he also has a super team, but that they're winning a lot.
You're not forgetting that he got in trouble with the footballs, right?
Right, he did. You're right. He got in trouble with the
Let's
footballs
not pretend
too.
like New England were the poster children of following the rules.
You're 100%, and he jokes about that too.
What did they call it? Deflategate?
Deflategate, exactly. That was a huge thing. But I feel like more people hated him because of, I guess, his the legacy, the fact that he really was so good. But now it's more people just hate the Chiefs because they can tell he's really cheating. But a lot of people were upset, like you said, with that Deflategate because they won that Super Bowl. That was the biggest problem because the Seahawks, that was the Legion of Boom. That was a really good team. So,
here's why the NFL loves the Chiefs, because everybody's talking about the Chiefs.
You're right, exactly.
How many people, content creators like yourself, are talking about the Chiefs right now?
You're right.
A lot of people across the country, across the world even. And Taylor Swift helps with that. And Travis Kelce's brother helps with that. And the referees and potential impropriety helps with that. So I think in the NFL's mind, any attention is good attention.
I definitely agree. Well, Mr. Demartinis, we're running up on some time here. But I do want to confirm that our principal at Mepham does know ball. He knows what he's talking about, guys. So if you ever see him in the hallways, don't feel afraid to shoot a question about something, because I bet you he'd love to talk about it. But I want to thank you again for joining us on the podcast. I was really excited to have you on here, and I want to thank you again, like I said, for taking your time out of your day to come here and be our guest.
No, Luke, I'm so impressed with you and all of your classmates here, but Sheep on the Loose has always been my favorite. I'm comfortable saying that. And
you guys heard it here. Sheep on the Loose is going to stay on the morning announcements.
No doubt, no doubt. You got to pick a successor to keep it going.
Oh,
after you're gone,
that's going to be a different. We've
talked about it.
Talked about it. It's going to be hard to carry on the podcast and carry on Sheep on the Loose, but who knows? Maybe next year you guys will have a new person roaming the hallways.
Or maybe we could get the Sheep to come back out of retirement.
That would be crazy. All right. Thanks. That's all the time we have here on the Sheep on the Meadow podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in again. Make sure you guys have post notifications on just so you can watch whenever a new episode is posted. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.